You have probably seen the image, even if you never knew the name. A man chained to a bare mountain at the edge of the world, and a great eagle descending on him out of a storm-dark sky, come to tear him open, not once, but every single day, forever. We tend to remember him as a thief, a figure being punished for taking something he had no right to take. But what Prometheus stole, he stole for us. And the thing the old story is really about is not the crime, it is the punishment and what the king of the gods was willing to do to the one who dared to lift humanity out of the dark. Because Prometheus, chained and torn and offered his freedom again and again, would never once say that he was sorry. So tonight you'll hear the full story of Prometheus, the titan who took humanity's side against the gods, the gift he gave us that changed everything, and the endless price he paid for it. If these are the kinds of stories you want more of, take a moment to subscribe. It genuinely keeps this channel alive, and tell me in the comments which myth you want to hear next. Now, settle in. To understand the figure on the mountain, we have to go back to a time when there was no fire in the world at all. Prometheus was a titan, one of the elder race of gods who ruled the cosmos before Zeus and the Olympians rose to power. His name means forethought, the one who sees what is coming, and that gift set him apart from his own kind. When the younger gods went to war against the Titans, Prometheus alone saw which way the future was bending, and he sided with Zeus against his own family. For that, when the war was over and the other Titans were thrown down into the pit, Prometheus was spared, and for a time he walked among the victorious gods as one of them. But Prometheus was never quite at home on Olympus. While the gods feasted in their bright halls, his attention kept drifting down to the earth below and to the small and struggling creatures who lived on it. Humanity, in those first days, had almost nothing. They were the youngest and weakest things in creation, and the gods, for the most part, did not think of them at all. Prometheus did. And the more he watched them, the more he came to care for them, which would turn out to be the most dangerous thing a Titan could possibly do. It is hard for us to imagine the world that early humanity lived in because we have never known anything like it. They had no fire, and without fire, they had almost nothing else. They could not warm themselves against the cold, so the winters killed them. They could not cook or harden tools or work metal or light the dark. They lived in caves and holes in the ground, the old writers say, like ants swarming and frightened, with no defense against the night or the seasons or the beasts that hunted them. They were born, they suffered, and they died, and they understood almost nothing about why. Prometheus looked at all of this, and where the other gods saw beasts beneath their notice, he saw something else, potential. He saw creatures who, if they were only given the smallest spark, might rise out of the dark and become something extraordinary. But there was a problem, and its name was Zeus. The new king of the gods had no love for humanity. To Zeus, mortals were small and disposable, and he had no interest in seeing them grow strong. The one thing that could lift them, the secret of fire, belonged to the gods alone, and Zeus meant to keep it that way. The trouble truly began over a question of sacrifice. The gods demanded that mortals honor them by offering up part of every animal they killed, and it fell to Prometheus to set the terms, to decide which part of the beast went to the gods and which part the people could keep for themselves. Prometheus, always on humanity's side, decided to tip the scales. He killed a great ox and divided it into two portions. In the first, he hid the good meat and the rich fat, but he covered it in the animal's plain, unappealing stomach so that it looked like the worst share. In the second, he took the bare bones and he wrapped them in a thick, glistening layer of delicious-looking fat so that it looked like the better one. Then he let Zeus choose which portion the gods would receive forever. Zeus, the old writers say, saw through the trick, but he chose the fat-covered bones anyway so that he would have a reason to be angry. And he was angry. When he stripped away that tempting fat and found nothing but bones underneath, the king of the gods decided to punish all of humanity for the insult. He would take away the one thing they could not live without. He took back fire and left mankind to freeze in the dark. Prometheus could not bear it. He had watched humanity begin to rise, and now he watched them driven back into the cold and the dark by the spite of a god. So he made a decision that he knew would cost him everything. He would steal fire back and give it to mankind himself. The old stories say he climbed all the way up to the heights of the gods, to the place where the sacred fire burned, and there he hid a single ember inside the hollow stalk of a fennel plant, a slow-burning core that could carry a flame, unseen, for a long way. And then he carried it down. Picture that descent, a lone figure coming down out of the mountains of the gods in the dark, cupping a single stolen spark against the wind, all the way back to the freezing world of men. And then he gave it to them. He showed them how to feed it and shelter it and use it, and one by one, across the dark earth, the fires of humanity began to light. From the heights of Olympus, the king of the gods looked down at the world below and saw what he had forbidden burning in 1,000 places across the dark. And he understood at once what it meant. The fire was not the danger. The fire was only the beginning, because fire was never only fire. With it, humanity could do everything that had been impossible before. They could forge metal and shape tools and build. They could cook and survive the winters and multiply. They could light the long nights and begin at last to think and learn and remember. Fire was the first rung of a ladder that would lift mankind out of the dirt and, in time, make them something the gods had never wanted them to be: powerful. Zeus understood all of this in an instant, and his fury was beyond anything the trick at the altar had stirred. This was not a stolen meal. This was a Titan deliberately arming the one race the king of the gods had meant to keep small and afraid forever. And so Zeus resolved on a punishment to match. For humanity, he prepared a cruelty of its own, the first woman, and a sealed jar of every sorrow that would ever trouble mankind, loosed upon the world to make sure that the gift of fire would always be shadowed by grief. But for Prometheus, the one who had defied him, who had taken the side of mortals against the gods not once but again and again, for Prometheus, Zeus reserved something far worse and far longer. Zeus had Prometheus seized and carried to the most remote place in all the world, the far edge of the earth, where the cold mountains rose above an empty sea and nothing living ever came. There, against a sheer and lonely crag, the Titan was bound. The old stories say the chains were unbreakable, forged by the smith of the gods himself and driven deep into the living rock, pinning Prometheus spread against the stone so that he could not move, could not turn, could not even fall. And then the gods left him there. Picture the silence of it. A figure fixed to the side of a mountain at the end of the world, with nothing around him but the wind and the gray sea far below and the enormous, indifferent sky. No one to speak to, no way to move, no end in sight. For most prisoners, that alone would have been a punishment past bearing. But Zeus was not finished. He wanted Prometheus not only imprisoned but in pain, a fresh and savage pain, renewed every single day with no possibility of it ever stopping. And for that, the king of the gods sent a bird. Every day, the old stories say, a great eagle came. It flew in from across the empty sea, out of the storm-dark sky, and it descended on the chained Titan to feed on him. And because Prometheus was immortal, he could not die of it. Each night, what the eagle had taken grew back, whole and new, so that each morning the wound was fresh again and the agony began again, exactly as it had the day before. And the next day. And the next. The horror of this punishment was never really about a single moment of pain, terrible as that was. It was about the forever of it, the fact that there was no last time, no final day, no point at which Prometheus could tell himself it was almost over, because it was never almost over. The eagle would come tomorrow, and the day after, and 1,000 years of days after that. The old writers say he endured it for ages beyond counting, chained to that rock at the end of the world, torn open each dawn and made whole each night, alone with the wind and the sea and the certain knowledge that the bird would always, always come back. And through all of it, Zeus was certain of one thing: sooner or later, Prometheus would break and beg and ask to be forgiven. He never did, because Prometheus had something Zeus wanted, and they both knew it. The Titan, whose name meant forethought, had seen something in the future of the gods, a secret, a single piece of knowledge that Zeus did not have. Prometheus knew of a marriage that, if Zeus ever made it, would produce a son destined to overthrow his own father, exactly as Zeus had once overthrown his. The king of the gods, who had taken his throne by toppling his own father, lived in quiet dread of the same thing happening to him. And the one being in all the world who knew when and how it might come was the Titan chained to the rock. So Zeus offered him a bargain. "Tell me the secret, name the marriage I must avoid, and all of this can end." The chain struck off, the eagle called away, your freedom returned. All Prometheus had to do was give Zeus the one thing he wanted and bow, finally, to the king of the gods. Age after age, the offer stood. And age after age, torn open every morning at the edge of the world, Prometheus refused. He would not trade the secret for his freedom. He would not give Zeus the satisfaction of his surrender. He had chosen humanity's side, and the gods' cruelty against everything they could do to him only seemed to make him more certain that he had chosen right. Ages passed, and the world changed beneath the chained Titan. The humanity he had saved grew and spread and built, exactly as he had foreseen, and out of them, in time, came heroes, mortals with the blood of gods in them. And it was one of these, the greatest of them all, who finally came to the edge of the world. The old stories say it was Heracles, the strongest of all heroes, who climbed those far mountains in the course of his own long labors and found the Titan still bound to the rock after all that time. When the great eagle came winging in out of the sky, as it had every day for longer than memory, Heracles raised his bow and shot it dead out of the air, and its long reign of torment was over at last. And then, with Zeus's grudging permission, the hero broke the ancient chains and set Prometheus free. There are different endings to the bargain. Some say Prometheus finally gave up the secret, others that Zeus simply let the matter rest. But the heart of it is the same. The Titan who had been punished more terribly than anyone in all the old stories, the one who had taken humanity's side and paid for it for an age, walked free at last, and the world he had given fire to went on rising, just as he had always known it would. We have never really let go of Prometheus, and it is worth asking why. Of all the figures in the old stories, he is the one we keep coming back to, the rebel, the gift giver, the one who stood against the highest power there was and refused to bow. And the reason, I think, is that his story is really about us. Everything that lifted humanity out of that first cold darkness, fire, and the warmth and the craft and the knowledge that came with it, and the long climb from caves to everything we have built since. The old story hands all of it to a single act of defiance by someone who loved us enough to pay for it forever. Prometheus was not punished for doing something wrong. He was punished for doing something kind, for a race that was not even his own, against the wishes of a god who wanted to keep us small. And he never once admitted that he was sorry, because he was not. That is why he has outlasted the gods who chained him. We do not light a fire and think of Zeus. But somewhere in the oldest part of the story, every flame still belongs to the one who stole it for us and bled for it at the edge of the world and would do it all again. If this is the kind of story you want more of, subscribe and tell me in the comments which myth I should tell next. Sleep well.